Reborn, I stopped paying for a family that only called when they needed something. The first sound I heard after dying was my own mother's voice, bright and casual, asking if I'd Venmo'd my brother yet. That sentence should have felt impossible. Instead it felt exactly like my life, because I had already lived this morning once before. I was standing in my kitchen in a bathrobe, coffee going cold on the counter, my phone lit up with a message from Mom: Dylan's rent is due tomorrow. Can you send the usual 900? He's had a rough month. He always had a rough month. I had sent the usual for 4 straight years. In my first life, I typed back sending now before I'd even finished my coffee. I didn't ask what rough month meant this time, because it never mattered: job loss, breakup, creative block, a truck that needed a transmission. The reasons rotated. The number stayed the same, and so did I, the daughter who always said yes, because saying no felt like abandoning people I loved. That life ended on a Tuesday 11 months later, in a hospital hallway, when a doctor used the words underinsured and out of network in the same sentence about my own emergency surgery, because I'd let my health insurance premium lapse for 2 months to cover Dylan's car repair instead. I found out, dying slowly from a complication nobody caught in time because I couldn't afford the follow-up scan I kept postponing, that my family had spent the week I was in the ICU arguing in the group chat about who'd inherit my car. Not who would visit. Who would inherit? I died on a Thursday. My last coherent thought was doing math: how many years of the usual I'd have needed to save instead, to have paid for the scan that might have saved me. Then I woke up in my kitchen, bathrobe on, coffee still hot, staring at that same text. Can you send the usual 900? 11 months back. The exact morning it had started, if a habit 4 years deep can be said to start anywhere. I didn't feel rage this time. Rage was for the first draft of a life. What I felt was clear, cold, and very awake. No, I typed. I'm not sending money this month. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Mom called within 90 seconds. Sweetheart, did you see my text? Dylan's rent. I saw it. So you'll send it? No. A pause so long I checked whether the call had dropped. Is something wrong? Are you okay for money? That question, are you okay, used to make me feel loved. This time I noticed what it actually was: concern about my capacity to keep giving, not concern about me. I'm fine, I said. I've just decided I'm done covering Dylan's rent every month. He'll be devastated. He's counting on it. He shouldn't be, I said. I'm 28. He's 31. I'm not his safety net. You've always helped your brother. That's just who you are. In my first life, that sentence would have ended the conversation, because it wasn't really a compliment, it was a job description I'd never agreed to, handed to me so often I'd mistaken it for my personality. I used to be that, I said. I'm updating the description. She hung up more confused than angry. Anger came later, once she realized I meant it. I didn't quit my family loudly. I quit them administratively, which turned out to be far more effective. I opened my banking app and cancelled the recurring 900 transfer I'd set up 11 months ago in my old life and had, apparently, set up again out of habit within the first hour of this one muscle memory older than the second chance itself. I deleted it before it could execute again. I called my insurance provider and reinstated full coverage, paid 3 months in advance, so a lapse could never again be the reason a treatable thing became a fatal one. I opened a separate savings account Dylan didn't know existed and moved 4 months of expenses into it, untouchable, unnamed in any group chat. Then I did the thing that actually changed everything. I stopped answering financial requests with yes or no and started answering them with why. Why does the rent need to be 900 from me specifically? I asked Dylan directly, 3 days later, when he called sounding wounded and confused. You have a job. It's commission-based. It's inconsistent. So is mine. I still pay my rent every month. You don't have my expenses. What expenses? Silence. In my first life, I never asked that question, because asking felt like accusing him of lying, and I loved my brother too much to accuse him of anything. This time I understood something I hadn't back then. Love and audits aren't opposites. You can love someone and still ask where the money went. He listed things: a car payment on a car nicer than mine, a streaming bundle, a gym membership, dinners out. Not emergencies. A lifestyle he'd built assuming I'd always cover the gap. I'm not paying for any of that, I said. I'll help you build a budget if you want. I won't fund one I'm not living. Mom said you'd help. Mom doesn't pay your rent. I did. Past tense. The family group chat, which in my first life I'd muted only after I was too sick to check it, became a live document of exactly what I'd been subsidizing for years. Dylan posted a photo from a concert 2 weeks after telling Mom he couldn't make rent without help. My aunt commented a single laughing emoji. My father, who never once offered to cover anything himself, wrote, "Family helps family. Don't know why this is suddenly complicated." It wasn't complicated. It had just stopped being invisible. I typed one reply, calm as a spreadsheet. I've sent Dylan roughly $43,000 over 4 years. I'm not accusing anyone of anything. I'm just done. The number did more work than any argument I could have made. Numbers don't have tone. Nobody could accuse me of being dramatic about a total I'd simply added up. My mother called that night, furious in the specific way people get furious when a story that used to work stops working. You humiliated your brother in front of the whole family. I told the truth in front of the whole family, I said. Those aren't the same thing, even when they feel the same to the person who benefited from the silence. You've changed. I have, I agreed. I used to think being a good daughter meant being useful. I think it means being honest now. I like this version more. She didn't have a response to that. I don't think anyone had ever offered her that specific sentence before, from me or anyone else in the family who'd learned to keep the peace by staying quiet and paying up. 2 months later, my father asked me to co-sign a loan so he could help Dylan buy a food truck, a real business this time, he said, the same phrase he'd used about the last 3 ventures Dylan had abandoned within a year, each one funded partly by money I'd sent that had been quietly repackaged into Dylan's seed capital. No, I said, before he'd even finished the pitch. You didn't even hear the plan. I've heard 4 plans. I don't need a 5th. This is different. He's serious this time. He can be serious with his own credit, I said. I'm not putting my name on it. We raised you to take care of your family. There it was, the sentence I'd built my entire personality around for 27 years, delivered like a debt I owed simply for existing inside a family that had decided, long before I could consent to it, what my role would be. You raised me to take care of Dylan, I said. That's not the same as family. Nobody ever asked Dylan to take care of me. My father went quiet in a way that told me the comparison had never once occurred to him. That silence was its own kind of answer. I threw myself into work instead, the thing I'd always done with the leftover attention my family's needs hadn't consumed. In my first life, I'd stayed at the same junior analyst role for 6 years, too financially stretched to take the unpaid certification course that would have gotten me promoted, too emotionally drained after every family call to study at night. This time, with $900 a month no longer disappearing into someone else's rent, I enrolled in the course within a week. I finished it in 4 months instead of the year I'd budgeted, because for the first time since college, my evenings actually belonged to me. My manager, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Priya Okonkwo, noticed. "You're different this quarter," she said, reviewing my numbers. "Sharper. Faster. What changed?" "I stopped funding other people's emergencies," I said. "Turns out I had a lot more brain space than I thought." She laughed, but she wasn't entirely joking when she said, "Whatever you did, keep doing it. I'm putting you up for the senior analyst opening." I got it. 12 weeks after I got it, I got another offer, a direct-to-track role at a competitor, recruited specifically because a partner there had noticed my certification project circulating internally. The salary was nearly double what I'd made in my entire first life at 28. I took it without calling my parents first to ask whether it was a good idea. In my first life, I would have run every decision through them, waiting for approval that always arrived with strings attached. This time, I simply told them after I'd signed. "You didn't think to discuss this with us?" Mom asked. "It's my career," I said. "I didn't discuss the 43,000 with you either, until I stopped sending it." Dylan's food truck, funded eventually by a smaller loan he qualified for on his own credit after 2 rejected applications sobered him up about actual numbers, lasted 8 months before folding. He called me once during that stretch, not to ask for money, the first call in years that wasn't, but just to vent about a bad supplier deal. I let him vent. I didn't offer to fix it. When he finally trailed off, waiting, I think, for the old script where I'd ask how much he needed, I said only, "That sounds really stressful." "What's your plan?" "I don't know yet." "You'll figure it out," I said. "You're smart when you have to be." It wasn't warm. It also wasn't cruel. It was, I realized as I hung up, the first honest conversation we'd had in years that wasn't secretly a transaction. A year after I woke up in that kitchen, I stood in a new apartment, my name only on the lease, a savings account with a real number in it, a promotion letter framed on the wall not because I'm sentimental about paper but because I wanted proof, on bad days, that the version of me who said no had built something the version who always said yes never could. My mother still calls sometimes to ask, carefully now, almost politely, whether I might help just this once. I've learned the sentence that ends those calls kindly but permanently. "I love you." The answer's still no. Ask me for something that isn't money, and I'll show up every time. She hasn't tested that offer yet. I'm not sure she believes it's real. But I've stopped needing her to believe it, because for the first time in either of my lives, I believe it myself, and that turned out to be the only vote that ever actually mattered.